Did you know, like, I'm going to be a world-class athlete? I'm
No.
going to be one of the top athletes out of New England. When you were little, what were those years like?
Yeah, I always knew I was going to be an athlete, like professional athlete. That was always my dream since I was a kid, and it started probably around second or third grade. You know, my father, suffered from a drug addiction, and my mother suffered from a severe bipolar disorder. So, with both of them in and out of the house, I needed something to gravitate towards and something that would give me a dream and something that I felt, that I could achieve. And so sports naturally was that for me. And so, I looked up to all the athletes I saw on TV. I figured at first I wanted to be in the NFL. I wanted to be the next Barry Sanders. I wanted to, be a running back. And so that's what kind of drove me. And then one day I brought home a piece of paper thinking it was Pop Warner tryouts and it was soccer. My dad lit up like a Christmas tree. He said, "This is what you really want to do?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So he took me to the store and got me shin guards, the soccer ball, and kind of the rest was history. I didn't end up making the team. And he said, "This
It's like Michael Jordan not making the JV." Yeah.
My first team I tried out, I didn't make it. And then the rest was history.
And how much was your success based on, like training, on your own? How much mentally you were just really intense on the field? How much is it being a good team player? So those three things. In those early years before you won the New England champions, before you were trying to figure out which professional team do I go to, what's the college situation, like those early years for other families that are thinking about how to support their child as an athlete.
Well, I just loved the sport. And so I studied the sport, I watched it, I would go out and practice. I dedicated all my free time to going outside and trying to become a better soccer player. And I enjoyed the running 2 miles before every training session. Every single day, I'd come home, I'd do my homework, my father would pick me up from work, we'd go to the field until 8 p.m. every single day. Rain, sun, shine, winter, snow, didn't matter. I'd be out there on the pitch. And, I had kids in 5th, 6th, 7th grade who would, see me training all day and they'd be like, "What are you doing? Why do you, no one plays soccer and what are you training for?" And my 6th grade teacher, I'll never forget, or as my 8th grade teacher, told me I'd never make it. That it's not an attainable goal to become a professional soccer player and that I don't have the qualities to make it, not only in sports but in school. And so I've always had this drive. And, I think it goes back to being, in 3rd grade and knowing that I have to support my family and I have to be the leader of my family. And so there is no other option except moving forward. And I've carried that with me throughout.
You're such a nice guy. For people who know you, they just know you have such a good heart. You really connect with people. Is that how you were on the soccer field when you were like in the most competitive situations, whether it was club sport, representing Team USA, being a professional athlete? Like, is there a different Charlie that the people who know you now professionally would say, I don't recognize that Charlie? Like, is that the same Charlie, or
no,
or how? Like, is there a switch? Like,
yeah. The switch was the whistle. As soon as you heard the whistle, I was not the guy you were going to see on the field.
Yeah.
I was going to beat you no matter what it took. I wanted to win. I love competition.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets the best of me. But ultimately, I knew when the whistle blew, to be the best that you can possibly be, you have to be 100% committed and 100% committed to winning. And basically, people didn't like to play against me.
What was your signature move, and did it change over your career?
My signature move, because I was one of the faster players in the world when it came to being a striker. So it was just a quick step over, and usually I'd blow by them. I could either go left or right. So I think that's what separated me from a lot of players. I didn't rely on just my right leg or my left leg. I could go either way. But then that all had to change for me quite a bit once I got involved in a car accident and I broke my femur and my tib and fib in my right leg. And so
I wanted
couldn't rely on that.
So my list is, what was it like going professional, college? How'd you make the choice of what to do? I know there was overseas play. How's that play different? And then I think you were at some event and late at night you got in that car accident. Who was liable for that? I think someone died in the car accident. Something like that's got to shape you. Tell us about that stage of your life. We sort of like looked at the early stage. What was that stage, and then where did Team USA fit into that, and what was Beijing like?
So in college, heading into my sophomore year, I was playing in a tournament in Northern Ireland where all the top young players in the world would play, and we won. It was called the Milk Cup, and we won the tournament. The U.S., we beat Northern Ireland in the final. We beat Brazil in the semifinals. And I had won the Golden Ball, which is the best player of the tournament, and the Golden Boot for the most goals in the tournament. And so after that tournament, I said, all right, I'm going to play one more season of college soccer, my sophomore year, and then head to the pros. First game, sophomore year, I get taken out from behind. 10 minutes into the match, I tear my meniscus, and I'm out for 5 months. And so that was the first time that I really had a bout with depression. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to class. I kind of felt like my life was over because this is a sport I relied on every single day. This is how I got all of my frustration out. This is how I really had fun. I was able to express myself, and that was all taken away from me my sophomore year of college. So that first semester, I didn't get up. I didn't go to school. I barely slept, and when I did sleep, it was during the day. And so about end of November, the school had called me in and had a conversation with me and said, what's going on here? And so once they broke it down, they realized I was depressed. They put me on medication. They allowed me to go back to school in September and pick myself up. And I'll never forget that spring. I was really worried about where I was going to be as a am I going to be relying on my speed anymore? I had a knee injury. A lot of people here, if you have a knee injury, you're kind of done. You're not going to be the same anymore. So we were playing the Revolution in a spring game, and it was just a week before they started their season. And I ended up scoring 2 goals and I scored a bicycle kick. And we beat them. We ended up beating the professional team 3-1.
For those who don't know what a bicycle kick, it's not that you're on a bicycle. Maybe just to give 10 seconds.
You kind of just, the ball's up and you flip on your back and swing.
You defy gravity, basically.
Yeah. And so
Matrix.
I knew I was going to be okay. So I finished my junior year and knew, okay, this is my time. I had finished second in the Herman Trophy, which is like the Heisman Trophy for college soccer. So I finished second in that competition, and I said, okay, now is my time. And so I signed with Nike and flew over to Ajax in Amsterdam and had a 2-week trial, and to which at the end of that, I pulled my hamstring, so I didn't get signed there. But I ended up getting a contract offer to play in Stockholm, Sweden. So that's kind of where my life began as a professional athlete. And that was not all roses. I mean, you can imagine a kid coming out of college right into another country where they speak Swedish. I mean, they do speak English, which was easy, makes it easier, the adjustment, but I couldn't cook for myself. I didn't know how to kind of be a professional in a different country. So that first 6 months, I was eating burgers quite a bit and kebab, and that caught up with me. The fans were calling my coach saying, hey, this kid's out eating junk food every day. And so then I had that talk with my coach about 6 months in, saying, if you want to do this, if you want to be successful, you got to live your life a certain way. And if you don't, go back to the U.S. and you can have a career in Major League Soccer. And so I said, okay, I'll adjust and do what I need to do. And that's kind of when, towards the end of that season, I scored a hat trick. And I think that kind of gave me the confidence that I needed to continue to propel in the sport of soccer. And I started to hit this trajectory of being the top goal scorer for my club, top 5 goal scorer in the league in Sweden. I make the Olympic team in Beijing. And I think at that point, I felt like I could be one of the top strikers in the world if I continue. And then I break onto the full U.S. men's national team. And then I get bought by a club in France. And so now all of a sudden I'm playing in a top 4 league in Europe. And I score 2 goals against the defending league champions. And things are even getting faster. And now, Nike's talking about making me the premier player for the U.S. men's national team to highlight going into the 2010 World Cup that we still had to qualify for. And then the ultimate moment for me was playing in Mexico against Azteca Stadium. And for me, my first ever U.S. men's national team game was against Mexico here at the old Foxborough Stadium. And it was a 2-2 game, but I remember being just so moved and inspired by that match. And I thought, this is my dream. This is the game I need to play in before it's all said and done. And in August of 2009, we're going to Mexico to play them. And Azteca Stadium, for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically how I would compare it is like the Colosseum in Rome. It is one of the most
holy
iconic
ground for soccer.
iconic stadiums across the world. 110,000 packed in. You know, we've had some of the most memorable World Cup games in 1970 with Pele, 1986 with Maradona. And so you're walking in, you're seeing these plaques, you know what this rivalry means. And I scored in the 9th minute of this game. And, you know, went from a beehive, high altitude, to complete silence where you could hear the 500 fans, American fans that traveled to that stadium. You could hear them cheering in the upper right-hand corner of the stadium. So
did they ever chant your name?
yeah, they did. And
Here,
so
for time, let me just ask you: men's soccer, women's soccer. What do people not realize about the situation? You know, women's done very well, men not as much on the national stage, international stage. And then you've reinvented yourself as a broadcaster. And is that as fulfilling? And why are you so good at it? And like,
Thank you.
And how much are you feeding off the success of the Revolution, or is the Revolution feeding off your, like, what's going on with the Revolution this year?
So to start, the women's game across the world, it started here. Like, so, you know, when you think about where other leagues are across the world, the U.S. women had a head start. And you look at that 1999 team with Mia Hamm, they kind of changed the game. Like, they got people, the rest of the world, to understand that women can play this game and they should have the opportunity to play this game, and they should be given the same type of treatment as the men do. So I always look at that 1999 team as groundbreakers, game changers, and Mia Hamm inspired me. You know, as a little boy, and she was a striker, and she was you know, one of the players I always looked up to. And so the men, on the other hand, started later, and so they're trying to catch up. Now, I do feel at this time the league has done a good job of developing players.
Could your team that went to Beijing hang with this team? Like you look at the old basketball teams, you know, Abdul, you know, my sons play, you know, Madden or whatever on Xbox, and I see all these old, and I'm like, oh, those guys couldn't hang with today's guys. How would your team do against today's USA team?
I'd say,
and you're not on the record.
Yeah, I'd say attacking we'd be fine.
You are on the record.
Defending, I don't know, it'd be questionable. All the young players now are playing in Champions League on the biggest clubs in the world, so we probably wouldn't be able to hang.
Right. So anything more on women's soccer? What do people not know? And then broadcasting, and then the Revolution.
Women's soccer has, I think, has come a long way, and it still has a ways to go. But I think when you look at, you know, Megan Rapinoe and Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan, what they've been able to do to continue to propel the sport so they get the respect, and obviously they're fighting for equal pay. And I think U.S. Soccer is coming to an agreement with them to make sure that they get equal pay. So they get the same contract as the men, which is obviously revolutionary and great for the sport, and something that should have been done a long time ago. So with all the success they've
NCAA
had,
allowing athletes to get paid, is that going to help the disparity or close it? Is that going to increase it or close it?
I think for soccer, it's not really going to alter anything, just because the way you become a professional soccer player these days is through the academy, and then you go right up to the professional ranks. And college soccer has kind of been for the players who fall through the cracks. And some people are late bloomers, and then they can still have a successful career in Major League Soccer, and then go to Europe after that. But
I can't believe you played in Beijing. You look like you're 25. Right?
Yeah.
What about broadcasting? Talk about that in the Revolution.
For me,
I mean, you're really good at it. I mean, and people, like, you have a following, and you know, So talk about that.
I've always been a student of the sport. I love watching the game. You can't, as a professional athlete, you can't excel.
You're like the John McEnroe of tennis. You know,
I mean, if you can't excel if you don't love the game. So a lot of professional athletes, they retire. They don't want to put the work in anymore. They think.
I don't mean you were a bad boy.
No,
like
I was
McEnroe.
a good guy. Yeah. But you know, they just think it's going to come to them easy because they've done it, and they're not going to put in the extra work. But a lot of people have to get off the high horse or leave your ego checked and realize you're going to start from the beginning. Revolution.
They've never won.
They've never won.
Are they going to win?
I've been on a team when we went to the final and they lost. They've been there 5 times and they've lost. This year, I think they get it done.
Okay. Well, I am so proud that you are connected with the Quinn House. I know you helped build the membership here in some creative ways. in interviewing. And I know if you go to the pub downstairs, there's Tom Brady, there's the basketball greats,
Bill Russell.
Yeah. And then there's your jersey.
Yeah.
And when you walk in there, like, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like imposter syndrome that they shouldn't be there and then that you're the best, or are you equal, or are you like, wait a second, what am I doing in this room?
Actually, Kate Chertavian, who basically put all the art together in this building, showed me the jersey hanging on the wall, and it brought tears to my eyes. I was blown away. I'm very appreciative of everything in life, and I know I didn't get into it at all, but I was involved in a serious car accident just before the World Cup. We qualified. Like I said, I'm on this crazy trajectory, and then the next thing I know, I wake up, I'm in the ICU at the Washington Hospital Center. I had fractured my femur, my tib fib, my elbow, ruptured bladder, countless rib fractures, facial fractures, and a brain bleed. They told me I'm very lucky to be alive. I don't remember the accident at all, and they just told me they don't think I'll ever be able to run again. So I go from having the World Cup wrapped up in my hands to be this, in my opinion, I think I was on the fast track to be one of the best strikers in the world, to now, you're lucky to be alive, and we don't know if you're ever going to be able to run again. So I had to relearn how to walk and do all that. So a year and a half of building myself back up to get back on the field and redefine who I am on the pitch, because I was never going to be the same. Doing that, having a successful career, given that, because everything is extra credit, to then having twin boys born 3 months early. They're in the NICU for 92 days at the Brigham and Women's, and then that causing me to get tired, trying to support my family and play, and pulling my groin muscle and finding a tumor that ended up being a liposarcoma cancer. So all these things, I think, have just allowed me to understand how important it is to connect to people, to give back, to realize that,
you are such a ray of light for so many.
No.
And thank you for sharing. And
thank you.
And I hope people have conversations with you about this. Such an interesting life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.